Okay, this is the second video for the first module, and we're going to go into some detail about the assignments a little bit, so you have some idea of what it is you're going to be doing. We'll be reviewing this periodically throughout the class, so if you don't get everything now, that's fine, and you can certainly come back and look at this as often as you need to. Okay, so there are again really one big assignment for the class, which is the grant project, but we broke it into three parts: the organizational capacity assessment and then the grant itself. But again, all the written assignments, the organizational capacity assessment, the statement of need, goals and objectives, and the final grant, they really all are part of the same project, the grant itself. Okay, so a quick review. What are organizations? Just to give you some idea, and we have a separate lecture where we go into this in great detail. Organizations are most basically defined as a group of people intentionally organized to accomplish an overall common goal or set of goals. In other words, they're a group of people that work together to achieve a common purpose of some type. And we'll go into that in another video, so we'll go into that in great detail. But the point is that for you to write a grant, it takes place from within an organizational context. As I've mentioned before, most of the content is descriptive, and the descriptive content may go more or less intact into the proposal, but not any critical findings. So let's go over the assignment a little bit here. Okay, the organization you select should be the one you're writing the grant for. Of course, you can do a different organization, but that means you got to collect the same information twice. So I would make every effort to define and decide on your organization at the beginning of the class, and then you're going to be working through it for all the projects. Again, my preference is for a nonprofit, which is legally defined as a 501c3. We'll cover it in another lecture. And if you don't have an organization, I can link you to one. But any organization is okay. Now, what goes into an organizational assessment? It's a basic description of the organization. So who they are, how long they've been around, what their mission is. We'll talk about all those terms in a separate lecture. A description of existing structure. Organizations have structures, so you want to be able to describe the structure and the services that it provides. You want to be able to describe the organization's relationship to its environment, so who are its clients, that's a component of the environment, where do clients come from, what community is it in, and then those first sort of three bullets there are things that, again, will go pretty much directly into your proposal, but we'll get to that in another context. Then the analysis of the organization's ability to optimally function and adapt. That one is for you and me. So, what do you need to find out? You need to find out as much about the organization as you possibly can. This first assignment is a 5 to 7 page report that includes, again, the basic description, the name, the mission and vision. We'll cover all these things in another video, but name, mission and vision, its goals and objectives, its legal auspice, I will define that in another one. Does the organization have a strategic plan, and what does it intend for the future? A description of the existing structure and services. So what's the history? How long has it been around? Who are its clients? What services does it offer? What is the administrative structure? How many staff members work there? Its relationship. Are there competitors? What does it do in the community? Why is it important? Are there other organizations which you compete with? What do the clients look like? What does the staff look like? And do you have any important relations with other organizations? And then the analysis. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the organization? What are its current challenges? So you're probably asking right now, that's a lot of information. How do I find it? And the point is, it should be fairly available. There's lots and lots and lots of potential documentation you can look at. You can look at any documentation your organization creates. You can look at websites. You can look at brochures that they hand out. You can look at reports that they've created. And you can ask people at the organization. If you work there, you may have gotten an employee handbook. A lot of this information will be found in the employee handbook. You can interview your field supervisor, find out what they know. The point is that this information needs to be empirical, except for those last couple of questions. It needs to be empirical. You need to have a data source for it, or data sources, so that when you write this report, you're describing the organization, describing the structure, its relationship to environment, its ability to function. You want evidence. You want to cite that evidence using APA. So you want to go, again, look at websites. You want to go talk to people at the organization. You want to use any data you can, but you want it to be data. If I get a paper from you that has all of this information without any data, I'm gonna count you against you on that. If you've been working there a lot of time, you may know a lot of this stuff. Well, that's great. I'm glad you do. But we want some evidence to support it. Obviously, and this is a very important point, put big stars around this one. It is likely you will not be able to get an answer to every single one of these questions. Not every organization tracks its demographic composition. Not every organization really has a list of funders. So what you're going to have to do is do the best you can with the evidence that you can get. And then hint, 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 if there are answers that you cannot find, that's an issue. If your organization makes it difficult for you to find information, that's important to know. And that deals with those last couple of questions about strengths and challenges. So, you probably want to begin doing this reasonably soon. You want to begin thinking about your organization, and you may want to begin to collect some of this information as soon as you can. Now, the grant itself, it's in two parts. The background is that you are to prepare a proposal for this new program for your organization. And again, the organization comes from, or the grant comes from the organization, not from you as an individual. So I don't want to see I or me anywhere in it. It's a we project. So there are two choices that you have. Again, we talked about this a little bit before, but you can either find a real grant proposal request, which we call an RFP, an application. And if you choose to use that, I'm way in support of that, and I will help you try and get funding for it. The second alternative is to use the standard format that I'm presenting you in the RFP. Now, the first of these components, the statement of need and the program goals, I will go into greater detail in a separate discussion later. But basically what the statement of need will do is a discussion of the needs that your program wants to address in your grant. So you're focused very narrowly, when you get to this point, on the grant. The organizational capacity assessment looks at the whole organization, or at least the component of it that you are interested in working with. If you have a big organization like a hospital, you can focus largely on the social service unit or something like that. That all makes sense. But when you get to the statement of need and the program of goals, now you're talking about just the new project itself. So I'm going to go into this in another document a little bit later on, but it contains several sections. A definition of the problem should be empirically based, means you want a definition that you can cite. Then you want empirical evidence about the size and causes of the problem. And we have a lecture on this, so we're going to go into that in great detail. But you need data. If you're making an argument that there's a problem that has to be addressed in your grant, you need evidence. And again, that will count against you if you don't have evidence. So you'll notice underlined there, you must include statistics here, such as how many people have the problem, how widespread the problem is, things like that. Lots of examples I'll give you in another lecture, but you're going to need to prepare for that. Then something about other things that you're already doing, the organizational context to address the problem to date. What have you tried? What isn't working? May or may not be applicable. And then program goals and objectives, at least a good draft. We'll go again into this in great detail subsequent. You've already seen that piece. This is what a proposal looks like generically. Now again, if you find an RFP to work with, it may look different than this. But these are the sections that would go into a formal proposal if you're doing it for the grade only. And we'll go into all this in great detail later on. So, my suggestions to you at this point are to make a decision about the organization. You want to do that soon, really soon. It can be any organization you want, that's fine, but you want to make a decision soon. As for the grant itself, if you want to do this for real, you want to make that decision reasonably soon too. And there are a few steps that you want to take. What I would do if I were you is I would go talk to the powers that be in your organization and ask them 3 questions. First of all, tell them you have to write a grant for class. Say, is there a project that we want to do, and can I do it? And if they say yes to that, get as much information about that project as you can, right? Then ask them if they have a funder identified. If the answer to that is yes, then your proposal will follow that outline, not this one. If they do not, then you're just doing it for the grade, you're following this one. This format, by the way, is what you will find in the vast majority of grants look just like this with these sections. And by the way, we are going to go over each of these sections in great detail throughout the next few weeks, so if it does not make sense right now, that's okay. But the point is that if you learn this format, you're going to be in pretty good shape for your career, and that's a good thing. But if you find an RFP for a project that your agency wants to do, and you can find it soon, you can work on that for the class. So we will talk about these things in greater detail, both the capacity assessment and the grant itself, but this gives you an overview of what the projects look like. That concludes the second lecture for Module 1.